Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you're like me, then please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and maybe even hit the little bell that will notify you when I post new videos, because I try to post videos pretty frequently. I have to admit, today I planned on posting a video on one subject, which I'll probably get to in a future video, but I changed my mind when I read the news yesterday. And the news said that Joe Manchin, Democratic senator from West Virginia, said that he was not going to support the For the People Act, which is the law that would help to address some of the efforts by Republicans to restrict access to the ballot across the country. And let's be clear here. It's a pretty modest effort. There are lots of more radical proposals that could be taken to try to make the U.S. more democratic that were not taken up in this measure. This is really basically just a reestablishment of the Voting Rights Act and just basically some other basic common sense measures to make it easier to vote. So pretty modest proposal. But Joe Manchin said he's not going to support it, despite the fact that Republicans have been passing a raft of laws across the country, making it harder for people to vote. So that is pretty discouraging, I have to admit. And in fact, the time I heard about it was I had a friend message me with the headline, "We're doomed." And I can relate to that sentiment, I must admit. It's pretty hard to be optimistic when you see someone who's supposedly a Democrat, one of us, taking a position that basically gives the Republicans the keys to your own cell. I mean, this is really something akin to a hostage saying that they're not going to try to escape from captivity unless their captors agree to let them do so. Which obviously, when you put it in those terms, it makes you realize it's absolutely absurd. Joe Manchin, by the way, also said that he's not going to support any changes to the filibuster, which is nothing new. He said that before. But this new position taken that he's not going to support any changes that are going to be brought by For the People Act unless Republicans agree to it. Again, let's let our captors decide if we're going to escape or not, is maybe not entirely new, but certainly discouraging. So, are we doomed? That's the question I'm going to talk about in this video. And I'm going to argue that there are a number of ways that we can approach this problem, that this is not the end of the world, that we cannot take this as a sign that we're doomed, as my friend messaged me. Although it's discouraging, frustrating, and upsetting, we need to kind of take this in stride and continue pushing through other tactics that we can access. So let's talk about some of those tactics. And I'm going to propose three. And just to be clear, these are not the only three possible tactics that could be taken to try to address the issues that Joe Manchin has created. I don't have any kind of monopoly on good ideas. Believe me, I'm going to be the first to say that. But I just wanted to encourage people to think creatively about this problem, and rather than simply getting discouraged, to, as they say, work the problem, which is kind of what we need to do. So, first proposal would be to address this through reconciliation. Now, reconciliation is basically an end run around the filibuster. And what it does is allows you once a year to make a change to legislation that has substantial budget impact that then can be passed with only 50 votes rather than having to go through the filibuster process. And there are some other procedural approaches that you need to follow, but the bottom line is you can pass something with 50 votes as long as it has a substantial budget impact, and you do it only once a year. That is the approach that the Republicans took when they passed the Trump tax giveaway to the wealthy. That is the approach that the Democrats and the Biden administration took when they passed the COVID relief bill at the beginning of this year. So it's definitely something that can be used. We will have access again to this procedure in October when the new fiscal year starts. So at that point, we should definitely put together a huge, massive reconciliation bill that includes many measures that up until now have been blocked by the filibuster. Those would include things like the Families Act, like the infrastructure bill. And those are obviously things that are going to have a huge impact on the budget of the United States. So there's no issue with them going through reconciliation. But what about some of these voting rights changes? Well, maybe they need to be somehow massaged in a way that then they have a budget impact. Say, for example, that we provide federal funding for some of these measures that are going to be put into effect in the states to try to address voting rights. If we do that, then all of a sudden, this becomes the type of thing that budget reconciliation could pick up. Another example of something that might be able to be included in budget reconciliation would be statehood for DC and Puerto Rico. Now, obviously, there's going to be a budget impact as a result of those two measures. So those are the types of things that certainly we could do. And I think we need to put together a huge reconciliation bill in October that can be passed with 50 votes that probably includes just about everything that we've been looking for, with probably some exceptions. This would be a substantial change that will finally allow us to pass some of the legislation that we've been looking at that really has been frustrated this year as a result of the filibuster. So that's my first proposal. My second proposal would be that we need to look to find states where there's a Democratic governor who would appoint a replacement senator and a Republican senator who might be nearing retirement or close to retirement, who might be able to be wooed into the administration with some top job. I can think of three, at least, off the top of my head, where that's the case. One would be North Carolina, where there's a Democratic governor, and where the Republican senator has said that he's going to retire. So that's one option. Pennsylvania also, Pat Toomey, another Republican senator, saying he's going to retire with a Democratic governor. That would be one state where an appointment could be made of a Democratic senator. And then there's also Wisconsin, where, again, you've got a Republican senator who is likely retiring, who might be able to be wooed with some top job. All possibilities. Now, some might roll their eyes and say, wait, you're saying that we should offer Ron Johnson, the Republican senator from Wisconsin, who has been nothing but a negative pro-Trump figure in the Senate, to a top job in the Democratic administration? And my attitude is, at this point, we need to put everything on the table. That we need to kind of swallow a little bit hard if it means that we're going to be able to accomplish the goals that we seek to accomplish. And Ron Johnson, he may be an ideologue. He may disagree with us on everything under the sun. But let me tell you something. As a politician, he's got an ego. I've talked with many people who have asked me, why do politicians go to all the trouble? Is it some kind of financial incentive? Is it something like that? No, it's not any kind of financial incentive. Believe me. The drug, though, that politicians get their fix of is ego. And so if we're able to appeal to his ego, then it's the type of thing that I guarantee you we'd be able to offer him at least something that's attractive. So those are three possible states where you have a Democratic governor, Republican senator. There's also Kansas, that's a possibility. There are a number of states that can be looked at that where we might be able to make an offer to the Republican senator, create a vacancy that can then be filled, at least temporarily, by the Democratic governor, and then at least give us a vote that would allow us to maybe address the filibuster and pass some of this other legislation. Let me try to propose one more approach, a third approach, and that approach would be to really rely on organized labor. If there's any group to which every U.S. senator who's a Democrat owes allegiance, and this includes, by the way, Joe Manchin, this includes Kyrsten Sinema out in Arizona, that would be organized labor. And organized labor really has not benefited from any pro-labor legislation since at least the 1940s, really. And there is pending legislation that would try to give them some kind of equality in terms of dealing with employers. I mean, basically what we've done in the United States at this point is we've made labor unions more or less illegal. They definitely have an interest in trying to pass legislation. This legislation would be blocked by Republicans as long as there's a filibuster in place. So they have a real interest in getting the filibuster addressed. And really, they also have a real interest in seeing the Democrats stay in power. So they'd like to see things like For the People Act passed. They'd also like to see infrastructure passed because it's going to mean a lot of jobs for labor union members. So we can really turn to them and tell them, please deliver us these votes. Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, any others who might be wavering in terms of accomplishing some of these goals. So there are three ideas that are tactics that the Democrats can use to try to address this crisis that we have with Joe Manchin saying he's not going to support the For the People Act. All is not lost. This is such a big issue that I will post another video tomorrow dealing with the Joe Manchin issue. But in the meantime, I'd like to ask you if you could like this video, subscribe to the channel, maybe even hit that little bell that will notify you when I post a new video, because I do try to post videos pretty regularly. There's a lot to talk about, unfortunately. Until then, I will see you in the next video. Thanks a lot.